Engage or not to engage? Engage. Great. So I know some of you here believe that you were not taught. But I was taught 3 powerful words by Nuru Mugambi. The first word was come, twende. About 10 years ago, a text came through, and Nuru asked me to accompany her to the hotel that was then called Best Western. I think it's now called 4 Points. And they had been blasting music from the rooftops that had gone across lots of residents, the police station, all the police officers. Probably about 200 people were kept up late at night by this rooftop disco that used to happen. And one of the 200 people who showed up to ask for us to go and talk to them was Nuru. We approached the hotel. As good marketing people, a spread was waiting for us. I put up my hand to eat something, and Nuru snapped my hand and said, "Don't be bought, don't be bought." So I thought she was being over dramatic, but I accepted this. And today, 4 Points is probably one of the most loyal customers and members of the Kilimani Project Foundation. I'm talking 10 years ago. Transformative. The second word is commitment. Nuru reached out a few years later and asked, could she donate some money to a program that the Kilimani Project Foundation could develop around pedestrian safety. And she offered us 100,000 shillings to kick off that project, completely unsolicited. And the third word is community. The last time I saw Nuru was at a meeting organized by the chairperson of the foundation, Emma Miloyo. And she was trying to persuade Nuru to replace me on the board. Like a constitutional amendment that we all have to reject, I had stayed for too long. And Nuru was actually being headhunted for that role. So first, let me just say on behalf of the Kilimani community, we know who Nuru is, not just for her family, but for the community as a whole. I don't know if you're like me, but Kenya seems to be an extreme sport at the moment. Like, it's just not for beginners, right? Right? We have unemployed youth telling the treasury how to run the economy. We have unemployed young people who are worried about police officers in Haiti who come up against all kinds of crazy gangs and are receiving no salaries. We have young people who are worried about the financing model for university students. They're worried about their lecturers. They're worried about a public health system that doesn't seem to provide any benefits, but produces lots of revenue for the government. It seems like a difficult place to be. And for me, I always would like to say that Nuru saw the way forward for us. Come, let's show up. Let's stay committed. And let's build communities wherever we are. But for most of us, we operate really with a sense of the walking dead. Our heads hurt, our hearts are broken, and we seem helpless to be able to regain, to recover, to bring back that nation, the 254 that we were so proud of. On top of all of that, there's my daily job. A job that has taken me to quarries, to dump sites, to police stations, to hospitals, to mortuaries, so many places that I would love never to visit again, including, let me just say this, media studio rooms. And I think one of the things that we have to kind of bring into our focus is, why is Kenya like this? I have a theory that one day the counterintelligence operational procedures will be released to us. It'll be like 2074. Or we will suddenly get a copy of the 4 books of the Satanic Bible. And yes, it does exist. Somebody has written something like that, 4 books. And there will only be 4 operational procedures. The first will be what about ism? Whenever we get focused, whenever we get a surge mentality, whenever we are looking at an injustice, somebody says very cleverly, but what about that? And what about that? And what about that? And what about that? And as soon as we get to all the that's, we are now exhausted and have forgotten the first thing that we needed to focus on. Thus the second chapter would be the chapter of binarization. For those of you who don't like Kizungu Mingi, what does binarization mean? It is the idea that everything can be collapsed into two things. Us and them, yes and no, good and bad. And in doing that, there is no room for multiple options. There is no room for us to choose powerfully rather than having to take a side between just two things. The third chapter would be personalization. That when we start to take action, it is not our actions that get the criticism, but it is us, the human being, that is targeted. And if you've been following the debates on X, how is it possible that people, young emerging leaders who have had such foresight and such clarity for this country should spend 50% of their time targeting each other and canceling each other? This would be the fourth chapter. The fourth chapter is surrenderism. And that's the chapter that we all have to fear. That we would surrender ourselves to a world that doesn't work. That we would surrender ourselves thinking that we have no agency, no voice, no visibility, nothing that we can do will make a difference. And in that, we lose this world. So I think we have to come back to these three words of Nuru. The first was, right, come, show up. The second was commitment. And the third was, great, come, show up, commitment and community. So I'd like to close today by just saying that I dedicate this moment, these few minutes that we've had together, for all those astronauts out there, all those people, like my granddaughter, Kenaya, like McKenna, Nuru's daughter, like Nuru Mugambi herself, like Boniface Mwangi, who can see another world is possible and is trying to take us there. We love you, Nuru. Keep fighting as long as you can. Thank you.